Daniel, I wish I would have picked number 1. You were a hard act to follow. And your speech is still here. Greetings. It's alright. I could probably use some of the material to be humorous. Greetings, fellow Toastmasters, guests, and beautiful judges, I should say. What's up, New York? Do I have an accent? Well, I don't believe I have an accent, but I've been reminded by my fellow non-New Yorkers that I definitely do, especially when I say New York. Once they know I'm from New York, the first thing they want to do is play the Say This game. The Say This game is where they ask me to pronounce silly words because they want to hear my accent, and typically I end up either adding or dropping an R somehow in those words. Here's an example. They'll tell me, say father. Father. Say dollar. Dollar. But I don't always just randomly forget my R's. I just reuse and repurpose them whenever I need to. Like if I'm going to say, I have a great idea. Or I want to drink a soda. Well, as someone born and raised in New York City, I want to say, with over 32 years of deep roots here, it's time we turn the tables on these non-New Yorkers and prove to them that Oxford or Merriam-Webster missed a couple of words in their dictionary. This is what I call the official New York City dictionary. We only need to turn to the first letter, A. Attitude. I mean, that is a New York City trademark. Attitude with a capital A is classic because New Yorkers have very little patience. Especially when we're walking down the street and tourists are looking up in the sky. Excuse me! We have very fast-paced lives, clearly. Talking about things that move fast, another word in the dictionary for New York City is beat, under bike lanes. Now, in my day growing up, we didn't have bike lanes. What did we do? We maneuvered in and out of traffic on whatever freaking lane we could. Talking about bike lanes, that moves us to the next word, under C, for city bikes. Yeah, I know. In my day, growing up in New York City, we had our bikes stolen. At 13, I discovered the New York City F word. Figure it out. What were you thinking? I'll spare you the expletives just because I only have 5 minutes. Growing up, we didn't have smartphones, so we had to figure it out. We got lost in New York City. How did we get around? Street signs. We didn't have Google Maps to triangulate our longitude and latitude to tell us where the hip new restaurants were. Talking about restaurants, in the old New York, we didn't blog about food. If you went to a restaurant, let's say an Italian restaurant, and you ordered your spaghetti, and your spaghetti wasn't al dente, guess what you did? You told the restaurant it sucked. You didn't Yelp it. Talking about times changing, the next word, which I'm sure many of you can relate with if you are a New Yorker, is hipsters. Sorry to all you hipsters in the room that I may offend, but hipsters. The only people that should be wearing plaid are older people, like my dad. Another thing with hipsters is they're swarming the city. They're like a flock of double-decker tour buses flying down Fifth Avenue. You've even managed to hipsterize neighborhoods. Neighborhoods like El Barrio on 116th and Lexington Avenue are now being rebranded as Spaha, which stands for Spanish Harlem. Spaha? Really? That sounds like a 30-minute massage parlor in Chinatown. Even tourists have had their fair share of influences on our city. Let's take Times Square, for example, down the block. We went from pimps and hoes to Hello Kitty and Elmo's. Moving on to one word that will never change in New York City is politics. It's great to have a city where we've had such great leaders. I mean, in what other city in the world can you have a wiener mean a hot dog sold by a street vendor and a politician who's fighting for change to driving, to putting an end to driving while texting? Another classic New York City word is street smarts. With street smarts, that's something that we all had to learn because that's how we survived in the city. It's a type of thing, the technique that we carried around in our back pocket. And if you're on a crowded New York City train, well, chances are you probably carried it in your front pocket. But who knows if these New York City words will ever get added to Oxford or Merriam-Webster. If they do, the next time a non-New Yorker wants to play the say this game and tells me to pronounce something, I'm going to tell them to look for the other New York F word. Forget about it.